A lot of builds that I do have switchback lights inside, and switchback just means that it's white that changes to amber with the turn signal like I'm gonna show you right now, and then it goes back to white after that's over. Now normally when I do switchback jobs, I use something from Morimoto called an exchange driver, but sometimes I don't have these things on hand and I still need to be able to make something switchback, or it's really powerful and this thing's not strong enough to handle all the amps. So I'm gonna show you a way that you can build your own switchback driver using a couple dollars worth of parts in about 5 minutes. So this is actually what we're gonna make. This is the old school switchback module that I used to do 10 years ago. It's bulky, it's kind of ugly, but dude, it works really, really well. Let's talk about the components needed to make this and we'll start changing it up. All right, here is a standard Bosch style 5-pin relay. I'm gonna link all of this stuff up in the description so you can just buy it on Amazon. It's quick and easy. And of course, with Prime shipping, it shows up in like a day. Second off, I've got just a handful of little female connectors. We're gonna connect those to the wires that I'm about to clip in a second. And this is our magic ingredient. This is a little diode. This is an IN4007 diode, because you know, knowing the serial numbers on diodes is a thing. Okay, next we're gonna grab our wires. Now I'm just gonna cut the wires that I think are the appropriate color. So we've got red and black for power and ground, white and amber for our LED colors. And I'm gonna cut these, I don't know, about 9-10 inches. And then we're gonna just connect all the little connectors to the ends of them next. Another super important part that we need is a 4700 microfarad capacitor. This is a little 25 volt version. We're gonna show you how to install this to the relay in a bit. Oh, and the last little ingredient that we need for our mixture here is just some heat shrink to cover it up. You could use tape, you don't have to be fancy. It doesn't even really matter, I just like to use it. All right, so let's first start by just stripping the ends of our wires. Second, we are going to put all of our connectors on. Now we are going to make one little change to our 5-pin relay. We're gonna turn it into a 4-pin relay, and that's because we don't need this top pin where the power comes out after the relay is switched. That'll make sense in a little while. All right, so I'm gonna put my little capacitor right where this guy's at, so I need to pop that thing off. And then when we get to the next step, we're actually going to put the capacitor in an arrangement just like that. So we're gonna have power coming in here, back out through there, and then our trigger wire and our ground wire. If you want another video specifically about different ways you can use relays, check out that video. I'm gonna link it up. I'm just gonna show it, because if I link it, then you'll leave this video. But definitely in the description, I'm gonna put this video so you can learn more about cool things you can do with relays. All right, so we are going to put our ground wire and our trigger wire plugged into the relay. And we wanna look for this little line on the capacitor, because that we're gonna have to line up with our ground wire. So now I'm gonna strip the wires right just a little bit on here so that I can wrap them around the little leads coming from this capacitor. And then we're gonna make one more change before we finish up. So about an inch up on the wire, I'm just gonna strip the wire back a little bit so that I'm gonna be able to wrap it around the capacitor. And now I'm gonna solder up these wires to the leads from the capacitor. All right, and just another great excuse to buy yourself a quad hands is soldering up something weird like this. We've got all these things that you have to hold on to. Instead, quad hands is doing it for me. Cool. Okay, this is an interesting thing. So we're gonna take this diode, and this is gonna be like a one-way valve. It's only gonna let power flow through, and we're gonna use it for the turn signal. So when the turn signal sends power down into this yellow wire, what we wanna do is put a little one-way valve in between it and the capacitor. And what that's gonna do is it's gonna make it to where only the power that's being sucked out of this actual relay is gonna come from the capacitor, and it's not gonna allow the turn signal itself to suck power out of the capacitor. So that might not make sense, but that's why we're doing it. And if you just follow the instructions, this will work. So I wanna cut this yellow wire right here. Now I wanna add this capacitor, and I wanna make sure that the little strip is aiming down so that power flows into the capacitor. Now I'm gonna solder that to the lead going into the cap. Now I'm gonna strip our yellow wire again. I'm gonna wrap it around this dude, and then I will solder it on there as well. Now, if you have heat shrink, you could use that. If you've got some electric tape, you could use that as well. The only thing I'm gonna suggest is that you trim any little sharp pieces off of your little assembly here. Okay, so put my little piece of heat shrink on there. I'm gonna clip this wire off so that we don't have anything pokey coming off on that side. Now we've actually got our whole little system done. The only thing that we need to do is just have to plug in our white output and the red input. And we have a little switchback setup here. Okay, and just to keep everything nice and tidy, we've got our little FlyRyde green heat shrink that I'm gonna throw on, mainly just for branding's sake, but it will kind of keep things all together for us. Okay, now before I plug this thing in, I wanna test my parts. I wanna make sure that if I put up power and ground for these things, that everything is gonna work as it should. So there is our power and there is our ground wire. And with this lightning bolt, the way it's gonna work is it's just gonna turn all white all at once. Now, if I hook up this amber wire, then instead of being white, it would just light up amber. If I had both of them connected right now, then it would be white and amber together, which is definitely not the kind of look that what we want. So we're gonna plug this thing in first. All right, I wanna explain the connections really quick because we've got our ground wire coming from the lightning bolt. That's actually plugged into the box right here with the ground wire. And now we've got our amber wire. So what I wanna do is I wanna connect that with the input for turn signal on our switchback module. And then I already have this little guy, which is a flasher relay setup. And I'm gonna connect the flasher relay to that so that when we turn it on, it's gonna blink just like a car would. Now, meanwhile, we've got our white input for the lightning bolt, and I wanna send that to the white output from the switchback module. And if it works, which it does, when we turn it on, power comes into the relay and back out the white wire down into the lightning bolt. Now, if everything works well, when I hit the button, our little flasher relay right here is gonna get power, and it's gonna send a pulse on and off down this yellow wire, and that's what we get. Now we have our white that is turned off while it's flashing amber. And after the amber is done, it switches back to white. We got a switchback module. It can handle a ton of power up to, I guess it's a 40 amp relay. So assuming that we do this with something strong like a light bar, and then we have hardcore like amber turn signals going out, this thing's gonna be able to handle it, and we don't have to rely on buying something like an exchange driver or something that might hit the limits of what it can handle on a little circuit board. This is like a full hardcore beefy way to go about making a switchback module, and it was super cheap. So let me know if you're ever gonna use this and in what application you choose to make a switchback module for your truck, your car, your boat, I don't know, whatever. Let me know in the comments below.